Yeah, really nice to see you all this evening. A few familiar faces and less familiar faces. And yeah, just really nice to be together as a Sangha in Birmingham, and surrounding areas. And maybe some of you are nowadays on Zoom, can't make assumptions about where people are. Maybe you're in a different time zone. Maybe it's good morning for you even. Yeah, calling in from abroad or something, which sometimes happens. So yeah, I'm really pleased to be here tonight. I think emotion is such a fundamental and crucial kind of dimension of being human, and understanding the Buddha's teaching on working with emotion on the spiritual path is really radical and transformative potentially. And as the Buddha said with his teachings, it's like a snake. It's easy to kind of pick it up at the wrong end and get into trouble. So what I'd like to do tonight really is just go through some basic principles of skillfully kind of transforming restricted, contracted emotional states into more expansive states, and a little bit really on how to deepen into more expansive states of mind as well. So that's the broad outline, and we're going to I'll just say a little bit more, and then we're going to have a meditation in the first half, which I'll say a little bit about. It's a little bit different meditation from what some of you might be used to. And then we'll, not for long, we'll just break into really small groups of 3. And maybe there'll be 1 or 2 4s. And I'll give you something just to knock about briefly, and then we'll have a tea break. And then we'll come back. So in the first half, I want to, and this is mainly where the meditation will invite us to go, is to explore our relationship to, we'll open out and explore our relationship to things in our life that are good, things that we might even call are blessings, things in our life maybe that we only kind of really, we're in danger of only appreciating once they're gone. And it's really valuable to open to and appreciate when we're alive, but we can easily miss that, especially if we're anxious. Because as we know, when we're anxious, we tend to fixate on what's wrong or what could go wrong. We miss out on what's good. And then in the second half, I'd like us to look at how do we practice with the more difficult and constricted emotions, the more painful states that we can get into. So that's a kind of broad introduction. So I'm going to guide us in a meditation which I'm calling it is a blessing meditation. So our relationship on one level is quite common, isn't it, to really long for states of joy, states of nourishment, states of creativity, states of freedom. And at the same time, it's really common that we might have that when we're actually in the space where we might start to open into enjoyment or open into relaxation, that some quite strong judgments might get in the way, like, oh, I don't deserve this, we close ourselves down, or it might be taken away, so I'm not going to allow myself to enjoy it because it's too painful when it's taken away. Or it might be just simply that it's not safe to relax. It's not safe for me to relax. I need to keep sort of a bit tense and on guard. So in this meditation, I'm just going to guide us through some areas which may be important or valued by us. And I just invite you just to sense into the areas that I invite you to touch on. And if for whatever reason, what I touch on doesn't feel like something that's nourishing or rewarding, then just replace it with something else. Yeah. So if you're a bit confused, it will probably make a bit more sense when we start the practice. So if you get into your meditation postures and things. So here we are now. And maybe just as we start out, just notice if you're starting to pressurize yourself to relax or calm the mind. And I invite you to just see how it is just to become sensitive to how you are. You're just noticing your energy level at the moment. And maybe you can just sense your mood at the moment, or if there's any emotional weather, you're excited or nervous, irritated, whatever. And maybe just noticing there's a sense of pleasure, pain in the body. If the body feels good or less good, or numb, or a mixture. And from here, we'll just gently turn attention to the first blessing we have, which is the ground. So I invite you here just to sense what you're sitting on. And can you feel the sensations of that contact in your body, the tingling, the pulsing, the warmth? And you might be able to sense that there's a stability, that whatever your chair or bed or sofa is in contact with is connected to the ground through the structure of the building you're in, so that it's rooted and has a solid support. So I invite you now just to feel the blessing that the ground beneath us is still and stable. We sit on still ground. And the ground is always offering its stillness, which we can benefit from if we allow ourselves to connect with it. Feeling the ground beneath us, feeling our support in the chair, grounded. And now from here, this is more imaginative. Above us all is the vast openness of the sky. How is it for you to connect in your imagination with the vast openness of the sky above? Maybe there's some clouds, and beyond that is this vast open dimension. What a blessing. Vast and open. We have the solid, still, reliable density of the ground beneath us and the vast openness of the sky above us. And we live between these. And now you might like to just take a moment just to acknowledge your efforts to meet your own needs and look after yourself through practicing on the path of Buddhism. Honor the part of you that shows up to events like this, that wants liberation or truth, heart opening, whatever language you might use. That you have the capacity to see the value in practice and to engage. To grow ethically, to develop awareness and wisdom. And now I invite you to evoke the sense of a good friend, someone who you would call a good friend. And I invite you to imagine their care and concern for you. Their appreciation for you even love, maybe. How you are a valued part of their life and you enrich their life. And they think of you warmly, even with love. Feel warmly towards you. What a blessing. And allowing space for what else is there too as you do this. How is it for you to feel warmth towards yourself from another, even loved? And now, as we move along, I invite you to bring to mind someone in your life, past or present, who you've really benefited from. Maybe a teacher, mentor, someone in your family or a friend. Just evoking a sense of them and allowing yourself to feel supported by this person's qualities, how they attended to you, feeling how they benefited you, feeling their goodness towards you. You might even imagine a light shining from them to you, a red glow or whatever might evoke this quality of benefit that they gave you. Just noticing how it is for you to imagine this benefactor, this, and feeling the blessing they gave you and are giving you. And from there now, I invite you to broaden out gradually and just becoming conscious that we are a group here together, a Sangha. And even if you don't know people, you're benefiting us all with your presence here tonight. And I invite you just to feel the support of being part of a group, that we aren't alone, that we can come into a relationship like this. And again, giving space for what else may show up as you do this. What a blessing we have the opportunity to come together for mutual support. What a blessing. And now we move on to more potential blessings. So I'm going to just raise some specific aspects here that come to mind for me. There's the blessing that there are people that drive and carry the food we eat close to where we live. The blessing that people transport food so it's accessible to us. And then there's the blessing that people work hard to organize and display the food and stock shelves, which helps us choose what we eat. And the blessing that there are people, farmers that grow the food that we eat. What a blessing that there were the people that built the property that we're in now, that we have walls and a roof that are solid, that we have a means of keeping our property warm, that we have access to healthcare. And perhaps the greatest gift of all, we have the teachings of the Buddha. And the lineage of teachings that were developed following the teachings of the Buddha. This rich canon of powerful teachings. We live in a time where these are accessible in our language. In a form we can understand. How can we ever give back as much as we've been given? And so we'll just sit now for a few minutes in quietly, and then I'll ring the bell. Okay, so yeah, do make yourselves comfortable, because I want to tell you a story. So yeah, do make yourselves comfortable. It's not a long story. It's an old story. And it's about a life incident from a great Tibetan Buddhist yogi and poet called Milarepa, who was alive in the 11th and 12th century, and is a very significant figure in Tibetan Buddhism. And there's a collection of songs, the 100,000 songs of Milarepa, and this is where the story comes from. And it's the tale of Red Rock Jewel Valley. Like Susie sells seashells. Red Rock Jewel Valley. So this is the story. So one day, Milarepa left his cave So there's Milarepa. He left his cave to gather firewood, and when he returned, he found that his cave had been overtaken by demons. Scary looking demons, aren't they? There were demons everywhere. His first thought upon seeing them was, I have to get rid of them. He lunges towards them, chasing after them, trying forcefully to get them out of his cave. But the demons are completely unfazed. In fact, the more he chases them, the more comfortable and settled in they seem to be. Realizing that his efforts to run them out have failed miserably, Milarepa opts for a new approach and decides to teach them the Dharma. If chasing them out won't work, then maybe hearing the teachings will change their minds and get them to go. So he takes his seat and begins teaching core Buddhist teachings about existence and non-existence, compassion and kindness, the nature of impermanence. After a while, he looks around and realizes all the demons are still there. They simply stare at him with their huge bulging eyes. Not a single one is leaving. At this point, Milarepa lets out a deep breath of surrender. Knowing now that these demons will not be manipulated into leaving, and that maybe he has something to learn from them. He looks deeply into the eyes of each demon and bows, saying, it looks like we're going to be here together. I open myself to whatever you have to teach me. In that moment, all the demons but one disappear. But one huge and especially fierce demon with flaring nostrils and dripping fangs is still there. So Milarepa lets go even further, stepping out over to the largest demon. He offers himself completely, holding nothing back. Eat me if you wish. He places his head in the demon's mouth, and at that moment, the largest demon bows low and dissolves into space. So as with maybe all stories, it can be interpreted and unpacked in different ways. So I just wanted to just share my some of my comments on this story, which is a famous story from the Buddhist tradition. And it's coming in the second half of this evening, you know, with the focus shifting now to more difficult emotions, you know, that we might face, more painful, stuck places in us. And as ever with these ancient stories, there's just so much that can be sort of drawn out of them. So I'm just drawing out just a few aspects that struck me. So I'll read it out again. So one day Milarepa left his cave to gather firewood, and when he returned, found that his cave had been taken over by demons. There were demons everywhere. His first thought upon seeing them was that I have to get rid of them. And I just thought that's just so human in a way, that kind of knee-jerk reaction. Like, I don't want it, I hate it, I just want it to go, you know. I want to kind of throw it off me. It's bad, I hate it, you know. So in Buddhism, that's responding with the poison of aversion. You know, in Buddhism, there's three poisons: greed, hatred, and delusion. So this is an aspect of hatred. You know, you're hating something for being there. You just want to get rid of it. Very human. He lunges towards them, chasing after them, trying forcefully to get them out of his cave. But the demons are completely unfazed. You know, so it's not touching them. You know, this willful, just wanting to kind of force them out. In fact, the more he chases them, the more comfortable and settled in they seem to be. So I know in my experience that what I resist persists. And if the strategy of just hating things and wanting them to go away worked, then I wouldn't need this, you know, and I wouldn't need the Buddhist teachings, really. I'd be doing quite well probably by now. And it's partly testament to the fact it doesn't work that I am here, and the tradition's here, I think. I think the tradition would have fizzled out very quickly if the strategy of fighting experience worked. So realizing that his efforts to run them out have failed miserably, Milarepa opts for a new approach and decides to teach them the Dharma. If chasing them out won't work, then maybe hearing the teachings will change their minds and get them to go. So he takes his seat and begins teaching about existence and non-existence, compassion and kindness, the nature of impermanence. So he tries to reason against them, you know, and you know, I think this is pointing to something very human, that, you know, we can easily tend to reason against our emotions. Like we say, oh, don't be silly, you know, it doesn't make sense. And then we attack ourselves, maybe, you know, reject ourselves for feeling sad or feeling upset about something or feeling anxious about something. So we try and transform the emotions by using our lines of logic or reasoning. After a while, he looks around and realizes all the demons are still there. They stare at him with their huge bulging eyes. Not a single one is leaving. At this point, Milarepa lets out a deep breath of surrender. Now, I think this is a really key turning point, because there's disillusionment here, which is such a big part of Buddhist practice, you know, where we get disillusioned by old strategies or old habits. You know, the strategy of fighting or just reasoning, trying to argue ourselves out of emotional states. And I love that deep breath of surrender, because that's literally what the nervous system does, you know, when on a bodily level, there's a release of stress, you know. And it also gives a space, you know, when there's disillusionment, there's a space for taking up a different relationship. So knowing now that these demons will not be manipulated into leaving, and that maybe he has something to learn from them, he looks deeply into the eyes of each demon and bows, saying, "It looks like we're going to be here together," you know. And I think that's, so true in a way, isn't it? It's when you come to that point where you think, oh, I don't want this to be here, but it is here. And, we're going to be here together. There's like a kind of making space for it. I open myself to whatever you have to teach me. So there's such a crucial quality comes in here, which is receptivity, openness, curiosity. This is such a crucial quality in Buddhism, when you shift from contracting and reacting to starting to get curious and interested in experience. It takes courage, of course, as well. In that moment, all the demons but one disappear. Sangha says, awareness is revolutionary. It's the most powerful, transformative psychological agent there is. Awareness is revolutionary. One huge and especially fierce demon with flaring nostrils and dripping fangs is still there, digging his heels in. So Milarepa lets go even further. Stepping over to the largest demon, he offers himself completely, holding nothing back. Eat me if you wish. He places his head in the demon's mouth. So I just pause there, and it's probably worth bearing in mind here that Milarepa had been practicing for some time by this stage, and was already had developed strong qualities. And this is testament to even the deepest, darkest, most stuck place in him. He had the courage and fearlessness to get so intimate and present with this, that he could place his head in the demon's mouth. And at that moment, the largest demon bows low and dissolves into space. I haven't frozen. The demon dissolves into space. So that's a hugely significant thing for me. Because another core central aspect of the Buddha's teachings is that whatever rises in experience, if it has the space, will just what they call self-liberate. And so often with our, where we're stuck emotionally, it isn't just that there's a difficult emotion, there's something else pushing it down or fighting against it, which I'll come on to in a minute. But when something is just allowed in itself and has a space to move and manifest freely, it dissolves into space, a bit like fireworks. So it's quite easy in a way to understand that intellectually, but it's obviously quite another matter to actually have this level of fearlessness and to embody these lives, these principles and qualities in our everyday lives. So what I wanted to do now is to just give 3 suggestions for working with difficult emotions, to use that term. I listened to Viranaya's talk last week on emotion as part of this series on the Eightfold Path, and she mentioned different ways of working with emotion, and it is kind of very much in the spirit of what she was mentioning last week, but in using slightly different language. So sometimes we are overwhelmed by emotions, aren't we? You know, sometimes we're being carried away by them in quite unconscious ways. And my suggestion here is that sometimes just trying to turn towards it and be with it is not the best thing to do. That we might be asking too much of ourselves, that sometimes emotions are beyond what we can tolerate. And the simple, well, not the simple, but the principle of just turning towards and being with and becoming intimate with is unrealistic. So the first principle is that if there's overwhelm, one thing I think that can really help is actually to work to bring in what might help us settle. You know, so this is in a way more about reducing the intensity of the chaotic emotion, so that it's within a range that we can be present to. Sometimes we can actually it can make the emotion worse if we're overwhelmed, if we then just try and sit with it, because the body's, for example, just feeling a lot of fear or something and overwhelm. And I think it can be quite helpful to explore and experiment and find out for you what is effective for you when you're in overwhelmed states. I mean, I'm sure we've all made quite a lot of headway with this ourselves, just through a desire to reduce our suffering. But I think it's really important. So it might be like, a hot bath, talking to a friend. It might be doing some long exhalations, that stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. That's calming. It might be just going out into the garden and smelling the roses. Knowing what for you helps you come down from overwhelm. It might be listening to music, or many people just find lying down, really good, just to feel the kind of support of the ground. And then if there's less of a sense of overwhelm, and when I mean by overwhelm, I mean things like rapid heart rate, hyperventilating, or just feeling really kind of shut down. Sometimes we just feel really kind of dull and listless and things, and we might need some resourcing because we've got no interest in turning towards experience. It just feels horrible, So this kind of resourcing or settling, and that opening to the good we done in the first half, is in that area as well. So the second level that opens up then is a kind of the capacity to turn towards the difficult emotion or feeling. And fortunately, as humans, and this is really good news, is that when we practice turning towards the difficulty and just being and breathing with it, our nervous system can develop a greater tolerance to be with that emotion. The window of tolerance can widen without going into overwhelm. So we can actually, through being present with our body, develop the capacity so we're less vulnerable to overwhelm. So I've got an image here which hopefully will work again. Where are we? Yeah, here. So hopefully you can see that. I really love this image. So this is like holding our body and the difficult feeling, whether it's despair, sadness, heartbreak, grief, misery, and having the capacity to just kind of give it space to be. See, the hands are cupped there, and then bring curiosity, patience, engagement, receptivity, presence, empathy, and so on, all those qualities, and just exploring what it's like instead of trying to reason against it or to chase it away, is to practice this capacity to just bring kindness, this golden principle of kindness there. And sometimes to do that, what really helps is, oh God, what's happened there? Hold on a sec. Let's just start that again. So, yeah, let's do that. Yeah, sometimes what really helps is to hold. So on this diagram, you see on the left-hand side, there's this holding what's contracted. And then on the right-hand side, there's also holding, you know, what's good. So that might be, for example, the ground, feelings in our body that feel easier to be with. Sometimes, you know, having a sense of the light or what's good as we sit with ourselves can help us stay present and open to what's more contracted. So, and then the third level, this is the third level, is so we're holding, and then there's another possibility that comes out, and this is a really, in a way, getting to the root of things. So the Buddha sometimes taught in terms of us getting ourselves into knots, you know, that we're in knots of suffering. And I'm just going to use some, I don't know if this will kind of show up here, but I haven't done this before, but I'm just going to use some bits of string. So as we hold the emotion in kindness, we might start to see what's driving the painful emotion. And it's so often a mixture of judgments and emotions that are fighting against each other. So let's just say we've got, there's a feeling of anger. So there's, I don't know if you can see that, there's a feeling of anger. And then there's another piece of string that says, I don't want to be like my dad, or for example, and feel that, or I don't want to be angry because it means I haven't achieved anything as a Buddhist. And then there's another knot here, which is I really don't like the tension that comes with anger. You know, I want to get rid of it. And what happens is that we end up with like a knot of these different aspects, yeah? And so often as humans, what we'll try and do is we'll just try and pull one aspect of the knot. You know, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't like the anger. But the rest of the knot just stays tight and stuck. So as we come into connection with ourselves, we have the potential to, we have the potential, we don't want to squeeze it like this, you know, we have the potential to just gradually bring awareness to these different aspects, to feel, let them be seen. Oh, there's this here, there's that here. And then you see what happens is that gradually it starts to become untied. It starts to get more space and its energy starts to free up. The body starts to relax. And eventually, just the different aspects have enough space just to kind of fully express themselves and then dissolve, you know. And we saw that in the story. So there's three aspects there. There's the, am I overwhelmed? If so, I need to settle. I need to learn how to settle or reduce the emotion. There's the, reminder of what would it mean in this moment to be in connection with myself, with kindness, with sensitivity and openness, to be curious, to develop the capacity to feel and be present with ourselves. Somebody, this is like being me being okay with me, you know, having that kind of orientation. And then as that starts to kind of become a possibility or an experience, is through openness and curiosity to start to kind of become conscious of some strong judgments, you know, that might be there. Think, oh, you know, I'm believing that. It's interesting, and investigating it. And to start to feel a bit more into what might be driving this kind of pattern of restriction. And then just allowing awareness to be revolutionary, and all the energy to that keeps this whole thing going, to untangle. And as I've been saying that, I've pretty much untangled the knot, actually. So I think next time I do this, I'm going to have bigger bits of string. I know, and then you just get these individual bits, you know, and then the system can then just kind of process and release that. And according to Buddhism, as you undo these knots of inner conflict, you know, what starts to be freed to shine through, which has always been trying to shine through, are the radiant qualities of the awakened mind, the radiant qualities of the awakened mind.